Welcome back to episode 9 of the Eric Z podcast. I'm your host, Eric Zamora. I'm also a realtor with Rennie and Associates Realty. So over at Rennie, we have our brokerage side as well as our new development project marketing side. So for any of your real estate buying or selling needs, feel free to reach out to us anytime. Today, we had a very exciting episode. I had a chance to sit down with Arthur Pangilinan. Arthur is the co-founder of the Odd Couple Company. So I've been on this quest lately to achieve and create the best tasting cup of coffee or espresso. So it couldn't be more fitting that I had a chance to chat with Arthur today. Over at the Odd Couple Company, they do their very own specialty coffee beans, which they roast themselves. And they have a huge selection of all different kinds. They follow this 90s theme for all of their products. So all of the titles of each of the different products are from that era, which is very cool. So had such a fun time chatting with him, and we got to really dig deeper into all the different methods when it comes to making coffee and what are some of Arthur's favorites in how he likes to do it. So hope you enjoy. Let's get right into it. So I'm here with Arthur Pangilinan, co-founder of the Odd Couple Company, and we're here to talk about everything coffee. So thank you for being here and
Great.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So we have lots to discuss today. And just before we get into that, I just wanted to find out a little bit more about you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, what you were doing in your personal, professional life before Odd Couple?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, really honored that you have me here on your show. I'm super excited to be doing this. My journey to coffee is probably not very conventional. And I grew up in Southeast Vancouver, went to elementary school at Corpus Christi, later went to high school where I met you at Vancouver College.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I had my first job at White Spot Restaurants at Oak Ridge.
Okay.
And that's actually my first true experience of brewing coffee and then serving it to patrons and customers. And I really loved it. Later went to university at Simon Fraser University, studying kinesiology initially.
Okay.
And then, like probably many Filipino kids, had a mom that wanted her kids in healthcare. And I didn't really want to do nursing. I had an older brother who did nursing. Ended up going into a new field called respiratory therapy. And so I went to Kamloops to study respiratory therapy, got my diploma in that, and then did a bachelor's in health sciences, and then started a career in healthcare. And so I worked at Vancouver General Hospital, Mount St. Joseph, St. Paul's. Did that for 8 years in various areas, ICU or ER, medical surgical wards, and really liked patient care, and thought that was going to be what I did for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But after 8 years, I felt like I needed a change, and somehow found my way in another new healthcare field called health informatics. And so over the last 12 or 13 years, I've been part of various teams implementing electronic medical records in hospitals and doing digital transformation projects. Over the course of COVID, I did a little stint at Burnaby Hospital thinking I need to give back, and I wanted to go back into the community and really help out. And so I oversaw a volunteer resources department and patient COVID screeners at Burnaby Hospital.
Okay.
And then found myself back into electronic medical records again, where I'm currently at. And funny enough, starting in coffee actually was because of one of my roles at Fraser Health.
Oh, how so? Like, how would you explain that?
So I met my business partner actually managing a healthcare information team. And so we had a staff of maybe 18 or 20 staff, contractors, co-op students, and I had just learned how to roast coffee. And so I was serving it to them.
Yeah.
just for fun and just seeing, okay, will people like what I'm roasting, and
Right.
will they enjoy it? And sure enough, they did, and they kept coming back. And so we started sending out emails to our team and saying, okay, this is today's roast. We have an organic Mexican Chiapas bean, medium roasted.
Oh, wow.
Come check it out. We're serving all morning. And after a while, our office, it was just the two of us. His name's Mehrdad, my business partner.
Okay.
And we really pretended like our office was a cafe.
Like a cafe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so people really loved it, and it resonated, and
Yeah.
and that was the start of Odd Couple.
Wow. So it's almost like that started to unravel this inner passion that you had for it,
Oh,
that you didn't really know at the time. Would that be accurate?
totally. Well, I do have some deep-rooted and deep-seated coffee memories growing up.
Yeah.
When we were younger, like I loved coffee. I loved the smell of it. I loved the taste,
Me too.
like right from childhood.
Right.
What did your parents drink any type of specific coffee?
It was always instant. It was
Right.
it was always like, what's the brand?
Nescafe?
Yeah. It was always that same one.
That's my parents' go-to.
Yeah.
Admittedly, even when they watch me roasting coffee now, they're still drinking Nescafe.
Right.
The
Yeah.
crystallized like scoop of Nescafe in hot water. That was my memory too. And
Yeah.
honestly, like the smell, the taste, it brings me back to childhood. And they wouldn't let us drink coffee, but I remember my mom would be like, okay, you can have a teaspoon.
Uh-huh.
And it would be with evaporated milk, sugar,
Oh, right.
and
Yes.
Nescafe coffee. And I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know what you mean. I'm very much into the taste of it. Like
Right.
it's not if you compare the taste of it compared to like I need the caffeine, it's like
Yes.
the taste is much higher like priority for me.
Right.
Like it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't operate without a cup of coffee, right? Like I could
Yeah.
probably feel it if I didn't have the cup.
Right.
I'd be like, oh, something's off. But it's not like, oh, I really need it. It's more like, oh, I just want a good tasting cup of coffee. Like that's what I'm itching for. Right?
You're into the process.
So, yeah.
It's not just about the purpose.
For sure.
Yeah. And, I have two brothers.
Yes.
So Anthony, who's the middle brother, he's the more coffee's just purpose for me. Like I just drink it.
It's all function.
It's all function. I need to wake up, and
Yeah.
I cringe when he tells me that.
Uh-huh.
My other brother, the oldest one, Armand, he's actually the one who got me into roasting.
Okay.
So him and his wife, my sister-in-law, they were living in the Bay Area 15 years ago.
Right.
And they introduced me to the crazy coffee roasting culture that's there. And so roasters like Blue Bottle and Phil's Coffee, everyone loves Phil's Coffee,
Yeah.
Mojito, States Coffee, those types of roasters and that coffee culture, they exposed me to that, and it was awesome. And Armand started roasting coffee, and we used just like a butane burner, like the ones you use for hot pot,
Right. Oh, yeah.
and then a popcorn popper.
Oh,
And
okay.
you're just churning away, learning the process, but learning the craft of it and how the nuances of the bean goes to different steps throughout the roasting process. And
Yeah.
after that, I fell in love with it.
Wow. So and now you started Odd Couple Company.
Yeah.
How long ago did you start that? Like, was this sort of right after that sort of era there?
So it was after we were managing that team. So about 2018, we decided, okay, let's make this an actual company. And it's funny, our staff would come in. They would make signage for us. They made me an apron with their own idea for logos for the coffee business. And it was actually one of the other managers from another team. I'll never forget it. He came by and saw that everyone was resonating to this, and then made a kind of snarky remark and said, well, good luck trying to battle out Starbucks.
Oh,
And so
wow.
I went to Mehrdad and I'm like, let's do this. Like,
Oh, so
Let's-
that was kind of like fuel to
I still remember his face, the snarkiness.
your motivation.
I ran into him like a couple of weeks back. Awesome guy, but just
Sure.
I'm sure I didn't mean he didn't
no.
mean it in that way, but that sparked it.
Yeah. No, it definitely wasn't intentional, but it almost it almost was conveniently like sort of helping
It was like a
each other.
challenge.
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. It put you up to it.
Yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
then Mehrdad came up with the name. He took it from the movie The Odd Couple. It's
Okay.
a 1968 movie with Jack Lemmon, I believe that was the actor, and Walter Matthau, and just a random duo that didn't really pair or didn't really make sense. And then that's how we looked at us. We're quite unique and different in our look, and yeah, we think of ourselves as kind of the odd couple.
Right. Okay. So it's very fitting. And who came up with, so it's very 90s themed.
Yes.
Needless to say.
Yes.
Which is awesome. Golden era, right?
That's our era.
Whose idea was that?
So that's all me.
That was all you? You took credit for it?
I am 90s hip hop, R&B through and through.
Right.
Which I love how this next generation coming up is really gravitating to like 90s culture, 90s clothing.
Yeah.
The baggy jeans and diving into like the music that we grew up with. And I'm sure it's because it's the kids of the parents that are our friends and our generation.
Yeah.
But that's all me. Mehrdad he's musically trained by background. He went to university, studied classical music, and he's more like that 80s rock, glam rock, Metallica, Guns N' Roses, like that's him.
Okay.
But his past also exposed him to a little bit of 90s hip hop, and so he gravitates towards that too. And that's what connected he and I to this, as well as that 90s theme and coming up with 90s inspired names of our roasts.
Yeah. Awesome. And you have a bakery component as well. Is that right?
Yeah, starting to. And so we've focused on a couple of products. And so for me, I've been baking ensaimada, which is my mom's recipe. Right. And for those that don't know, it's a Filipino style brioche bun covered in cheese, sugar, butter. It's
all the good stuff,
and
right?
light. And I not to be biased, but my mom's recipe is bomb. Like, it's so good. And so she's been teaching me that. And so I've been learning. And then he's been focused more on something called kaya. And so we have a kaya slow jam. It's a pandan coconut milk spread that you put on like white toast. And it's really big in Southeast Asia. He grew up in Singapore, and so that's where he was inspired to bring that into the mix, and that's been really popular as well.
Awesome. So with the coffee products, you know, how does one even get started in this space? Like, are you sourcing the beans from, you know, different places of the world? Like, is it all about being very good on that selection, you know, selector side, I guess?
It's a great question. And for us, we were looking at local distributors. And so there's a number of distributors who import the coffee beans. Over the pandemic, we started reaching out to others across Canada. And so we have been sourcing beans from a distributor in Montreal. But our beans that we use are ranging from various countries and regions. Our flagship bean is the organic Mexican Chiapas. That by far has been the most popular. Which is surprising because I don't see it often in retail stores or coffee shops. It wasn't a popular bean, and it was just the one one of the ones I started roasting. I know I'd mentioned Brazil, but Mexican Chiapas, I, for whatever reason, started roasting that a lot, and then it became popular. Yeah. And as we sold it, I'm like, okay, people really enjoy that bean, and even to this day are buying that the most. We also have Sumatra Mandalhang, Guatemala, Huehuetenango, Colombia, and then most recently started playing around with Ethiopia, Yirgacheffe, which is really popular. Like, you can go to most coffee shops and for sure they'll have an Ethiopia.
Oh, wow. Okay. And they all obviously have a different taste. How would you explain how, like, each of these, what are the different sort of tastes? Like, if, like, I'm just asking as total amateur.
For sure. And like I said, by far, I'm no expert, but I have taken a liking to why the various beans have different tastes, and
Yeah.
from various regions, it's climate,
Yeah.
it's like how lush the area, environment, and how wet, how much precipitation those beans are getting.
Okay.
Altitude's a big one.
Yeah.
And so for those various beans,
So higher up is
higher up.
better. Yeah.
Not necessarily better. So,
Alright.
and that's the thing. I think with coffee, it's so subjective. There's no this is better or this process of brewing is better.
Sure.
It's all personal preference, and I think that's the part that I love is you figure out what process you like, you figure out what bean type or bean varietal you like for your own palate, and then you experiment. And I think that's the beauty. There's no right or wrong answer, and it's funny. I'll have people come up to me who are like, I'm a true like coffee snob, and I only drink my coffee like this, and I only have it black. I don't use any like creamers or anything, and
Yeah.
I'm always like, that's great,
Sure.
and that's awesome.
That's
for
great.
you.
Yeah, that's great. That's how you do it. And
Someone else?
but it's not a one size
No.
fits all.
Not at all.
Yeah.
I love the Beastie Boys line. I like my sugar with coffee and cream.
Oh.
And so like some people some
Right.
people do really love the sweet side of coffee, and
Mhm.
some people don't like to mask the taste of the coffee bean. So it all depends
Yeah.
on personal preference.
Yeah, like I'm finding that it's really if you're used to something, then that's what you like, right? But it's like I've even tested putting less sugar in now,
Right.
and almost no sugar now, and it's
Nice.
like now your palate is like, oh yeah, this is great, tasting. So that kind of just reinforces what you're saying. It's like it can taste good so many different ways, right?
Totally. And
Yeah.
I'm a no sugar person. I don't have it with sugar, but I will use a little bit of a creamer. And I actually think for myself it brings out the flavors when I
Yeah.
put a little bit of creamer in it.
Yeah.
And then again, depending on the bean, you get more brightness and acidity with certain types of beans. The higher altitude, from what I understand, again, I'm not an expert, but when it grows on a higher elevation, similar to, it's funny because I have this respiratory therapist background.
Yeah.
When we're like, I don't know, when we're just living day to day, walking about, we're using oxygen, and we're metabolizing oxygen. But when you get into like, I don't know, sprinting or like hit intervals, you like trigger this anaerobic process where you're not using oxygen,
Oh.
and then
Okay.
your body builds up lactic acid.
Right.
Apparently the same thing happens with beans. So higher up you grow them, less oxygen, it takes on this anaerobic process, and then apparently there's more lactic acid in your beans, and maybe partly why you get that more acidic or bright taste. And I know a lot of the local roasters in Vancouver will really highlight that acidic taste, which some people love it or they hate it. It just, again, it's all personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were chatting earlier, and I was, mentioning that like I just got an espresso machine recently.
Yeah.
And, the whole goal in mind was that I was, this goes back to the taste thing, right? Like I was really like, you know what, I'm ready now. I want to like discover and try to like find like a, how best of a tasting coffee I can get, or espresso, right? And it's been great. I mean, it's such a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was excited to talk to you today because it sounds like you're very well versed in more manual method, which is like the pour over, the is it a plunger press?
Yeah,
Yes.
AeroPress or French press,
Percolator,
percolator, mocha pot.
So these are your go-tos, right?
My go-to.
Yeah. Okay. So why do you favor those methods? Like what does it for you to do it that way as opposed to like using a machine?
Right. I gravitate towards the manual brewing method. I think through and through, for me, partly it is a little bit nostalgic. Like I said, when my brother and sister-in-law were exposing me to the likes of Blue Bottle and Phil's, if you go to those coffee shops in the Bay Area, and actually you see it now here with all the local coffee shops.
Yeah. Oh, like Revolver's kind of
Revolver,
is very much doing it
Matchstick,
that way, right? Yeah.
Nemesis, they're doing pour over and Chemex.
Yeah.
For me, it brings me back to being in San Francisco and going up to Blue Bottle or Phil's. Every station, just multiple pour overs, and you'd have the barista pouring multiple coffees on these pour overs, and it blew my mind. It's just so beautiful. Like you said, it's more an art or a craft.
Yeah.
You were saying, and that's really what the manual brewing method is for me. It really highlights the art of it, and I don't know, there's some sort of connection when you're brewing your coffee and making a cup, and it's again less about the purpose, and it's that process and enjoying the actual procedure of developing the perfect cup.
Yeah. So it's almost like both parts are actually you're finding enjoyment in both parts. It's the journey of it, making it, and then the end result of it too. So it's
always the journey.
So it's like both, right?
It's always a journey. Well, even the drinking is a journey itself.
Yeah. Okay. So so you wouldn't necessarily use a machine then?
I wouldn't say that. I have an appreciation for machines, and honestly, I think it always boils down to personal preference.
Yeah.
Getting the perfect cup of espresso from a machine, I think, is beautiful, and the process of doing it is just as labor intensive, if not more so. You know this from probably with your new machine. Yeah. The grinding, the tapping, like all of that. It's a procedure, right? And
it is.
It's an art as well. It really just differentiates how you're extracting the flavors in coffee into the water.
Yeah. It's so true. Like it when you say it's like an art form that way, because you have to really like the process. Otherwise, if you didn't like the process, it probably would feel very laborious. It's like almost, right? Because I got to do this, I got to clean up. It's like messy. It's like, and there's so many tools, right? So it's like you almost like if you did that without thinking that through, it's almost like, oh shoot, I probably should have just got that. What other brands are there? They have some of these one push button
single serve
brands,
right?
The
Keurig, the Nespresso,
yeah.
And those things have a time and place. I don't hate on them. I don't love them. I'd never use them myself.
Yeah.
But when people come to us and they say, "Hey, I'm using a Keurig. Can we use your beans?" And of course, you can use the reusable pod. The extraction won't be great, and so I try to give some tips and hints to, okay, well, maybe if you grind it a little finer or what, maybe you'll get more extraction. But think about a pour over. Think about a Hario V60. They're inexpensive. It's easy to get into, but even the single servings have a time and place.
Okay. So what would our listeners get if they want to do pour over method? What's inexpensive? What should they get to get started on doing that?
The end all be all is the Hario V60.
Okay.
It's just like a cone brewer that you pour using a filter, and that's pretty much it. You have that. You can pour over into a cup. You can do it into a carafe. It's not a lot to get started. I think that's also the beauty of it. Your entry point is really easy. When you get a little bit more hardcore, people go into the Chemex, which almost looks kind of like a lab chemistry experiment. It's a glass carafe with another cone shape on the top, but essentially same method, same approach. You put a filter on top, and then you're pouring on top of your grounds.
Okay. And a grinder?
Grinder. We rarely will grind beans for people. I'll do it on occasion, depending on the customer. But most of the time, we're selling whole beans and always making sure that customers have a grinder.
Okay.
Grinding right before your brewing. It's fresher. There's less oxidation of your coffee, and so it doesn't get stale as soon. And so grocery store coffee, you don't know how long it's been sitting there, and so it changes your flavor when you're really using fresh, high quality beans that are ground right there and then.
Okay. So with when you're trying to achieve that best tasting cup? What are you looking for in terms of your grind, how long you're pouring it? What are all these factors that you got to consider? Like, what are you thinking in your head? Okay,
Right.
like, this is what I'm trying to achieve.
There's a total science to it.
Yeah.
And I try to learn as much as I can, but I don't fully subscribe, probably also because I'm not good at following the rules. And so
Yeah.
I kind of go by my own feel. And this is where I also encourage people to try things out.
Yeah.
I tend to like a finer grind with most things.
Finer. Okay.
Finer.
Yeah.
You'll hear, for example, if you're using like a French press, you'll use a coarser grind, or if you're using like your espresso machine, it's a fine grind.
Yeah.
I generally
That's interesting.
like a fine grind for most thing, or a finer grind.
Okay.
I think the extraction of a fine grind is longer. If you picture in a pour over, you have like a fine grind, kind of like a sand, and you pour water, it's going to be slower to seep through than if you had a coarser grind that's like small little pebbles, water's just going to run through it.
Okay.
So the finer the grind, the slower the extraction, which really will pull out and draw out more of the flavors, the oils, and kind of the beauty of the bean. And so for me, it's on the finer side of grinds for most things.
Okay. Okay.
Coffee enthusiasts will probably cringe at that comment, but that's what works for me, and that's what I enjoy.
Right. I know, like I've been researching a lot of videos, talking about this, and it seems like overall, I agree with what you're saying. There's certain guidelines obviously in place, and these help to achieve like sort of that best tasting cup.
Right.
But then at the same time, everybody has a different sort of threshold for what's tasting really good to them. So
Exactly.
So it's so it could be a little bit off from those guidelines, but it's still okay, right? I guess. Is that
I completely agree.
right?
The right way to brew, I always like saying, is how you like your coffee. And so when someone comes to us and they ask, okay, well, what beans do you recommend?
Yeah.
It depends. And so I'll say, well, tell me how you brew your coffee. And so they'll say, well, I do pour over, or I do espresso, I'd use just a regular conventional drip machine. And so based on that, I'll recommend a coffee.
Yeah.
But really, when you play around with it, even with your espresso machine, you can use a darker, typical espresso bean. But there's no reason why you couldn't use a lighter roast or a medium roast. You'll probably hear more now the blonde espresso, where they're using a really light roasted bean as opposed to your conventional really dark roasted bean.
Yeah. So speaking of recommendations, you have a couple samples here. Let me grab it.
Okay, yeah. And these are for you to enjoy after. I can't wait for you to put these through your machine.
Can you tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, okay, so our first one here is Poetic Justice, and it's a single origin,
Love that title.
organic Guatemala Huehuetenango bean. Poetic Justice.
Classic movie.
Classic movie. Thank you. I'm glad you said movie, because for kids in this generation, and I play off of it, but they think Poetic Justice, which is Kendrick Lamar and Drake.
Oh, right. Yeah,
Awesome song.
fair enough. Yeah,
Awesome song.
yeah. Brilliant. But
For us,
yeah.
it's Janet Jackson, it's Tupac.
And Tupac, yeah.
Hence the heart. I don't know if you see the O, it's actually a heart, and that's from the movie.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Yeah.
The way Poetic Justice is written.
Yeah.
And so this is a medium roast. I like to, when people ask for pour-over recommendations, I'll usually say, go with a medium. You'll really taste the bean.
Okay.
And so when you're choosing roasts, the lighter the roast, the more the bean will come out. So the uniqueness, the characteristics, the qualities of the bean will shine in a lighter roast.
Okay.
The darker the roast, the more you'll actually taste the roast as opposed to the bean.
Okay. Yeah.
If you like Starbucks, and it's fine to like Starbucks, they roast their coffee super dark.
Okay.
And it's, from what I understand, it's a consistency thing. They do it a little bit darker than most people, because the product they know is going to be exactly the same every time. And it's because the darker roast actually masks a lot of the bean.
Right.
And then everything just honestly just taste kind of the same once you go really, really dark.
Okay.
So we like to roast ours on the lighter side. Even when we're roasting dark, we're probably on the lighter side of dark. But we have been getting customers asking us, can you do it a little bit more dark? And so
Okay.
that's one
You
of
got
our
some requests.
one of our things is we roast to order. It's the mixtape culture, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was
Roast
just gonna say.
roast to your preference.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to ask for something unique, I would bet most roasters will be like, no, you drink it the way I roast it, like, and that's it. That's end all be all. For us, if you like it super dark,
Yeah.
like we'll roast it super dark. And,
Yeah.
and we have one customer, our darkest roast is called Star Blanket,
Yeah.
and it's a play on words. It's because she loves Starbucks and loves it like almost to the point of burnt.
Oh, okay.
And her last name's actually Star Blanket as well. It's an indigenous last name, and we thought, let's put that together.
Oh, nice.
It's become our most popular selling dark roast coffee.
Oh, no way.
But I cringe when I sell it because I'm like, this is too dark.
Right.
But it's popular, and
Yeah. Hey, like I said.
people love it, not just her. So
Yeah.
the second one we brought was cream.
This is one of my favorites that I saw on
Right?
your page.
And the name, obviously,
Yeah.
if you're a Wu-Tang fan,
Yeah, of course.
cash rules everything around me. But for us, it's coffee rules everything around me.
Okay.
And
Nice.
it's fitting because cream and this bean, which now I'm realizing I forgot to write what type of bean. I'll do that after. But it's actually single origin Sumatra Mandheling. So an Indonesian bean. It's really full body, kind of has a syrupy texture to it. And when you add a little bit of cream to it, like this roast is just so creamy and it has that kind of lather in your mouth. So perfect name. Another popular one, it's roasted medium dark. So that's probably as dark as I would prefer to go, but we do of course go darker.
Okay.
But if someone's unsure and or if they're getting a bean for let's say a gift for a loved one and they don't know exactly what they want, I always say, you know what, go medium dark, somewhere in the middle. You can't go wrong.
Okay. So you can use these for doing your manual pour over methods, or you can use it with an espresso machine.
Definitely.
All good? Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay. Yeah, nice. So the other thing I saw that you're really into is like doing coffee outdoors.
Yes.
That's like sort of your way to escape, I guess. Would it be? Like, just being out there?
Absolutely. And I think for most people over the last few years, getting outdoors and bringing your family outside has become more of a kind of norm for us. And so my wife and I were always at the beach. We have a group of friends. We refer to ourselves as paddle gang.
Yeah.
We're always hitting up Spanish banks.
Okay.
We'll do paddle boarding, and then we'll always come back to the beach for some après food. We'll throw down. We'll cook on our jet boils, and then of course I'll be like, Arthur, are you doing up the coffee? And so that'll always be a staple, and I'll do the coffee right there and then.
Okay. And I guess it's all the same gear. You're just making sure to bring some hot water.
Exactly. I mean, of course you're not going to be able to do your like your espresso machine, of course, because you don't have power. But
yeah,
pour over, absolutely. AeroPress, if you do want that espresso but don't have power, it's compressed by just your hands, and so it's still high pressure extraction, similar to an espresso. You can take your Bialetti or your mocha pot and do that stovetop espresso as well on a burr.
Okay.
That works really well. But yeah, again, tried and true pour over at the beach. It's beautiful. And it's a conversation starter. Everyone loves talking about it and asking, and it highlights the roasts, and people can actually see the bloom and they see it bubble up, because when you're just days off the roaster, you are supposed to let your beans air out, but there's more carbon dioxide in the beans, and so you get a lot more froth and a lot more bubbles, and it's, in my mind, it's beautiful, and people love asking about it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, once I get a handle on my espresso machine, I'll start working on my pour over methods.
How are you enjoying it? Like, what are your go-tos? Are you doing the whole barista and like the flat whites and cappuccinos? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, mostly espressos.
Okay.
And then yeah, like it's one of those things. It's like sometimes I'll mix it up and maybe do a macchiato.
Nice.
But it's been very like small cups, right? Like just like I'll just do a double shot espresso or a double shot macchiato. We've done an Americano, but I haven't really experimented like outside of that yet. So
Okay.
yeah,
What do you love best about it?
the taste,
Taste.
yeah,
Okay, the taste is definitely different.
yeah. Like like I said, yeah, I'm not knocking on Nespresso, right? It served us well for so many years. Ultra convenient, right? But yeah, I think you just get you all of a sudden are ready to start doing something a little bit more like you made this rather than just like putting in a pod and pushing the button, right?
Right.
Yeah. So now it's like I look forward to doing it. Like I'm, it is enjoying that process, like like you said, right?
Have you noticed? Has it slowed down your life? That process,
In what way? Like
bringing you to like the present moment and
okay, yeah, no, exactly, yeah, like that is, I don't know what it is. It's like you get to this point where you start appreciating more of, it's like when I cook, for example,
right.
it doesn't matter if it's lunch, or breakfast or something like that. Like I'll still plate that breakfast or plate that lunch. Like I'll still
Nice.
I'll still do that because it's I don't know what it is. It's like doing that, you just feel much better doing that, right? Even if it's just a simple lunch, I'll still plate it. Like,
Awesome.
So,
You got
in
to
a
see more of
sense,
that content. I haven't seen enough
Right?
of that.
Yeah. So yeah. So to answer your question, yes, it does make you appreciate a lot more of the smaller things, right?
Nice.
And slowing down and taking a minute to enjoy it. So
Right. Absolutely. I was reading recently, like Italian coffee culture is huge.
yeah,
And when you go there, people don't go to a coffee shop and then sprint out with their to-go cups off to like their first meeting or work.
right.
Like they purposefully slow down, go to the cafe, sit and drink from an actual like espresso ceramic cup and like savor and really enjoy the moment.
Yeah.
And they make it a process. Just the enjoyment of it is a process and procedure. And they don't sprint out. They don't cut it short. Like they're not in the same to-go culture that we have over here.
So that was actually motivation for me. Funny story, when I was working in Europe, in England.
Oh, great. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I was part of a big traveling sort of trip when, had less responsibilities.
Okay.
But one of my good friends that worked at the hotel there with me, he was from Italy. And he made like the most amazing cup, like while he was just on his break. Like he had his own stuff and he was making it. And then he gave me one. And that was literally the best tasting cup I've had in my entire life. Like no joke. I'm not even like hyping it up or anything. So ever since then, I was just like, how do I get that exact tasting cup, right? So that sort of sparked the curiosity of trying to, experiment with it a bit more. So yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
That reminds, like, that's part of why the music really resonates for us.
Yeah.
Like I would bet that moment, it's absolute best cup of coffee you ever had, but there's like other factors to it, right? It's the moment, it's the person you're with, it's the experience,
Sure.
It's the ambiance. There's all these probably things that like trigger that memory.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And for us, like music does that, right? Like it takes you back to a time, or it takes you back to your childhood or a moment or an experience.
Yeah.
And that's why we try to like tie that together and make it a coupled experience of coffee and then that 90s hip hop.
Yeah.
And then people love it. Like, I don't know, they seem to enjoy that part just as much as the coffee itself.
Yeah, totally. It's a total package, right? Yeah. So now we're wrapping up 2023.
Okay.
what's next for Odd Couple Company? What do you see? What's your ambitions and goals for the next near future here?
Yeah, I think for us, we've primarily focused on online sales, and it was really just to get proof of concept. Like, can we make something that will resonate with people and that they'll buy? And now we're pretty comfortable. Okay, that there's definitely a market. There's definitely an appetite, and people are resonating with the brand. And so we actually did recently our first craft farmers market. It was the Tugboat Artisan Market in River District. They reached out to us and said, hey, you'd be a good fit. Do you want to come down?
Okay.
And that community really embraced us. It's like we had so much fun, and they loved the product. They loved the brand. We had some vendors even asking the organizers, hey, can we set up with the next to the Odd Couple company next year? And so it was really cool to meet
good.
everybody.
That's a good feeling.
And the volunteers. It was an awesome feeling. So a lot of vendors were telling us other markets to get into, start joining the circuit. So I think you're going to see a lot more of us in a lot of the local markets in the coming year, especially when spring and summer hits and all of those farmers markets start happening weekly. We'll definitely be there. A lot of questions we've been getting a lot lately has been, where do we find you in stores?
Yeah. I'm wondering that too.
Can we find you in a shop? And so that's going to be our next focus as well, is finding a wholesaler to carry us in a retail store. And we've been looking at actually those new like bodega specialty candy snack shops.
Okay.
That seem to be popping up everywhere. They're really big on that hype beast culture, and we're like, okay, we probably fit pretty closely into that, and that's probably a nice, easy target demographic.
Okay.
That would resonate with the product. So we'll hopefully have that going in the coming year as well.
Okay. So where do we order, if we want to order Poetic Justice cream, like today, where do we order that from?
So online, you can visit our website, www.oddcouplecompany.ca. Also, you can find us on social media. We're trying to build a big social media presence on Instagram, TikTok, X, and Facebook. So at Odd Couple Co. And
awesome.
Find us there, and hopefully enjoy the 90s music that we post as well.
Yeah, I love it. Love it. That's awesome. So I'm really glad we got to chat. I mean, you've definitely inspired me to really pursue further into my my coffee journey. And,
perfect. That's the goal. There it is.
And just wanted to say congratulations on all your success. I can see clearly the true passion you and your co-founder have for this. And wish you continued success, and maybe you can do a pour over demo for us one day.
Done. Okay, we'll check off that box. No,
awesome.
I'm really happy you had me on here, and that was a lot of fun. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.